This is a mill. Specifically, this is an Enco vertical knee mill with a 50-inch table and a 2 horsepower motor. Knee mills are one of the most common industrial machines used in metalworking. They can cut slots, drill holes, and chamfer edges, among other things. Around 1995, a man named John bought this mill for his personal use. Now, why would a man need a 2,800-pound industrial milling machine in his garage? Well, to John, this was normal. You see, John was a tool and die maker. He spent 30 years at Ford Motor Company in a fully outfitted machine shop with the ability to make pretty much anything, as long as it was for the company. But John had his own projects, his own hobbies, and his own interests, so he built his own machine shop. Eventually, he taught his grandson how to use these machines, passing down his knowledge of the tools he used every day. Why am I telling you about all this? Well, John was my grandfather, and in the winter of 2021, at the age of 30, I inherited his machine shop. Since I left home to study engineering at 18, I have dreamed of the day I could get back in front of these machines. Welcome to my journey of rebuilding my grandfather's machine shop, one piece at a time, and finally getting back to my metalworking roots. Welcome to Inheritance Machining. My grandparents retired to a remote holler in eastern Kentucky, and from the age of 10 I also called that holler home. Life in this valley was different. Our nearest neighbor was a mile away, and it was a 45-minute drive just to get the groceries. We had no cell phone service, and definitely no internet. You would think I'd have been bored out of my mind, and at times, yes, I did go a little stir-crazy. But I always had an interest in making things. And for someone who loves to tinker, there's nothing better than living in a full-blown machine shop. It was a bit of a special occasion that I actually got to use one of the machines. My grandfather would show me how, but I always had to explain what I was doing, why I needed the machines, and what my plan was. John was a bit of a gruff man, and I never got a yes or no answer to these questions. I just got the look, which meant not a no. He would come out after I got started to take a look at my project. That was after I kind of knew what I was doing and could be trusted not to blow things up. With those simple early projects, I fell in love with the zen-like state I would go into when using these machines. It's not just hacking something together. I have to be focused, precise, and deliberate in my movements. If I have one slight lapse in attention, I could lose hours of work and have to start all over. I'm 100% in control of the outcome, and I love the satisfaction of making something with my own two hands.
Remind me not to throw anything away, okay?
When I went off to college, I didn't touch a machine or make anything for several years while I focused on my studies. Obviously, you can't have a machine shop in a college apartment, so I joined the student race car team. The team's task was to design and build a scale race car, and as a rule, the parts had to be made by the students. A perfect fit for me. The team made most of the parts at one of the campus machine shops, and after several months of working on the car, that very shop offered me a part-time job. Finally, after years of nothing, I was machining again, and I remembered just how much I loved it. But college doesn't last forever. After graduation, I again found myself longing for my own shop. While I got a job as an engineer and spent a lot of time designing things, I still missed being able to make things myself. I wanted my own machines. Now I know what you might be thinking. You keep saying how much you love these machines, but what machines are you actually talking about? It's a great question. Well, firstly, no machine shop is complete without a mill. You've already seen this one. Those are mostly used for making parts flat and square, and they're also really good at putting holes exactly where you want them. And this one weighs about 3,000 pounds. Next, you need a lathe. Lathes are used for making parts a specific diameter, known as turning. They are also really good for cutting threads and grooves, boring holes, and knurling surfaces. This is a JMT 360 engine lathe. It's over 8 feet long and weighs more than 4,000 pounds. Of all the machines, this is probably my favorite and the one I've spent the most time on. Another really great machine to have in the shop is a surface grinder. While mills can make parts flat, surface grinders can make parts super flat. I'm talking within 1/10,000th of an inch across the whole part. This is a Turn Pro surface grinder with a magnetic vise from around 1995, and it too weighs about 2,500 pounds. Lastly, my grandfather had this 2,000-pound upright bandsaw. A bandsaw does basically exactly what it sounds like. They're used to cut raw stock down to rough shape and size before moving on to more precise machining. You got all that? Mills make parts square, lathes make parts round, grinders make parts flat, and bandsaws make parts smaller. Also, if you've been doing the math, and you consider all the other tooling and small equipment in the shop, we're looking at over 20,000 pounds of stuff. Which presents the next problem. How are we going to actually move all this stuff 125 miles away to my own shop? And also, how can we do it safely and economically? Now, these machines have not always been here. They've been moved once before. But I was there that day, and honestly, it was pretty sketchy. So we're going to find a better way. The biggest challenge of this equipment, aside from its weight, is that it's located down a 1-mile washed-out gravel road. The area immediately around the shop is also very steep, and the shop door is only 10 feet tall, so that rules out the use of a flatbed truck and a forklift, which was the first idea. I did a little bit more research on moving heavy equipment and stumbled across something called a drop deck trailer. Drop deck trailers have a hydraulic deck that can be lowered down to pretty much flush with the ground. Since all the machines are on wheels, we can simply roll them onto the trailer instead of having to lift them. This seemed like the perfect solution, except for one more problem. The combined weight of the trailer with each load would be around 10,000 pounds, which means we're going to need some serious towing power to move that much weight. I guess that means I'll have to rent a really nice 3/4 ton diesel powerhouse of a truck. What a hardship. With the moving rig secured, it's time to execute the plan. 4 trips over 4 days, one for each of the heaviest machines. Along with each machine, we will fill the truck bed and the rest of the trailer with anything else that can fit. The goal of this first trip is to move the mill, which is probably the most difficult piece to move. Not only is it tall, but it also has 2 milling heads, making it especially top-heavy. While the trailer does drop down to the ground, there's an initial ramp each machine has to cross to get onto the deck. We learned pretty quickly that pushing the mill up this ramp was just not happening. So instead, we used a chain and a come-along to inch it up onto the trailer. Where we strapped it down within an inch of its life. With a little extra room on the trailer, we also packed this small hydraulic press. This left the truck bed, which we could fill with all the mill's tooling and other small equipment. Unloading was a little bit more tricky. Fortunately, we were able to leave the trailer at a slight angle, letting gravity help ease the mill down, and using a strap to control the descent.
Stop.
That's one machine safely in its new home. The next piece of equipment to move is the lathe. While it's much shorter than the mill, it poses its own issue because of its length. We tried to use the same method with the come-along as we did with the mill, but found that the frame was dragging on the trailer. After some less than delicate persuasion with a spud bar, the lathe was finally on the trailer. And then we immediately took it back off. We realized that one end of the lathe is much, much heavier than the other, and it would have unbalanced the trailer going down the highway. So we flipped the lathe around and pulled it back onto the trailer, heavy side forward. Two machines down. So far, we had been very fortunate to have good weather for our moves, but of course, our luck ran out the day we moved the bandsaw. While it's not a super high precision piece of equipment, it still doesn't deserve to ride in the rain for 2.5 hours. Our solution? Vapor barrier, plastic wrap, and a whole lot of tape. Because of the rain, we could only fill the truck bed with things that could get wet, one of them being this granite measurement stone. These are really helpful for checking the dimensions of your finished parts, but unfortunately weigh a lot.
That's kind of heavy.
With the stone loaded, there is plenty of room for its cart, the table for the bandsaw, as well as a parts washer and some other odds and ends. Back home, our waterproofing efforts paid off, and the bandsaw is absolutely bone dry. I mean seriously, not a single drop of water. Even I was impressed. 3 moves completed, and this shop is really starting to fill up. Moving the surface grinder was pretty straightforward and left room for welding bottles and a sandblasting cabinet. After 4 days of moving, we were pretty tired and glad that this was going to be the last trip. Except it wasn't. We were back the very next day with a bigger trailer to pick up the odds and ends, including workbenches, toolboxes, and raw materials. This was actually the last trip. Finally, after 5 days of work, 25 hours of driving, and a lot of gas station snacks, it's done. The mill, the lathe, the grinder, the saw, and all the tooling are safe in their new 14x28 climate-controlled machine shop. While these are great machines, they definitely need a little bit of work to get them up and running. Most of the tooling is rusty, and the machines themselves need to be cleaned up. But I can't wait to finally get started.